Welcome to our Mastery series. This is our first video in this series. We're taking the Nordic because out of any gym in the entire planet, no one has coached and innovated the Nordic like we have. So our goal with this video is to bring you everything we know about the Nordic so that you are the master of the Nordic, just like we are by the end of this video. Keywords before watching this video. Concentric is the muscle. Let's take a look at my hamstring. Contracting, that's the concentric of a lift. Eccentric is the muscle lengthening. The hamstring is the back of the thigh. These muscles, there's three. And then a tendon connects a muscle to the bone. And then a ligament connects bone to bone. So you're talking about deep in there. So these are probably the 5 keywords before you watch this video. Make sure you understand these words. Let's get into it. Derek's gonna start things off and he's gonna show you how to progress.
I am. So with the Nordic, like you said, this is the only gym in the world that has mastered Nordic like we have. So we actually created a strap that you can use anywhere in the world, at any gym, at any time that you can progress on these Nordics. So I'm gonna show you how to progress from start into finish. So using a strap, you get on any bench, and just tie your legs down here. Make sure you're strapped in tight. And so by elevating your hips, you'll be able to make this an easier gradient for the Nordic. So I recommend everybody starting lying down with elevated hips. So if you've never done this exercise before, you want to make sure you really elevate your hips so you can get a good pull off that Nordic, you know, because it's a really extreme hamstring stretch and really a lot of tension on those hamstrings. So as you come down, you want to keep those hips as straight as possible, resisting coming down, lying down, and explode back up. So the eccentric phase is important. It's most important of the exercise. The concentric phase is when you're coming up. So once you master that level, you'll come down, coming up, and just progress your way down. As you get stronger, it becomes easier and easier to do. So you just work your way all the way down, starting high, elevated hips as high as you need until the lower. It's more challenging at this level. So you work your way all the way down to a flat bench. Once you get to the flat bench, then you can start working on our superhuman levels. So you still resist coming down, get down, extend up, and explode up. So you see how the strap is really, you keep your legs down, giving you the ability to explode up. So another one here, explode up. And explode up. And so I'm the longevity expert here at ATG. A big component of doing the Nordic exercise is for longevity, for knee health, is for an extension. So as I'm doing this exercise, I'm strengthening all the ligaments and tendons that are protecting my knees. As we get older, we stop doing the things that we did when we were younger, and a lot of times our hamstrings and our muscles behind our knees atrophy. And therefore, you won't be as strong, you start to have knee pain. And doing this exercise it allows you to really strengthen all these ligaments and tendons that are protecting your knees. So right now, I'm putting a lot of strain and tension right behind my knees. So doing the exercise is very important for longevity. So that is the Nordic strap. That is the basics of progressing. So hips elevated, bring it down so you're able to do a flat ground Nordic. And you want to try to work yourself up till you can get 10 flat ground Nordics.
Yep, that's right. So 10 flat bench Nordics is the basic progression for a man. And as Derek talked about, it has longevity benefits because when you stop sprinting all out, your hamstrings, you might still think you're working hard in the weight room, but you're not sprinting like you were when you were a kid. So actually your hamstrings start to go away. Now he showed you the basics of progression. It has to do with lowering the height of your hips. You're reducing how much actual gravity, how much of your own body weight you have. Now, Jeff is going to talk about the Nordic in relation to flexibility, and he's also going to talk about some stretching tricks you can use to increase power on your Nordic. Let's take a look. Now, while Derek showed you with the Mr. Infinity Nordic strap, we have some benches here, okay? So if you're just going to the gym, we highly recommend getting a Nordic strap so you don't have to rely on anyone or anything, and you can do your Nordics from anywhere. But if you're a gym owner, or if you know you're gonna be working in that direction, have a garage gym and wanna treat yourself to something, Rogue makes these. It's called the floor glute ham. So we use these. So Jeff will show you on here, but Jeff's just gonna talk with you about the relationship between Nordic strength and hamstring flexibility, and why you want both of those, and how in our superhuman programs you actually have to progress on both your hamstring strength and flexibility to go to the next level.
Yeah, so for the Nordic, as Derek talked about, it is an eccentric loaded kind of focus on the hamstring. When you're increasing the flexibility of your hamstring, obviously like our standard for the pipe is palms to floor. So our hamstrings are under eccentric load. So it's extremely important at ATG. The one thing we really focus on a lot is not only are we increasing our flexibility, but we're increasing the strength of the muscle group in that flexible range as well. And that's where something like the Nordic will come in. So before I show you the Nordics on the bench to prove that I can do them, I'm gonna show you a quad stretch on the bench that I like to use before I do Nordics, because it opens up hip extension. And since that's a big part of the Nordic, flexibility of your quads is also gonna be important, so that way you can get as much power through the hips for the Nordic. So I'll show that here. My favorite way is on the bench. I talked about that in the videos for the flexibility for the program. So you just want to make sure that your knee and your hip are in alignment. So you want to make sure that your knee is not too off alignment here. Make sure you're in a straight line. Again, really focus on squeezing that glute. That's the important part, and then sitting as tall as we can. So that would be the flexibility. That would be perfect for having a Nordic. As this, your knee is in flexion and your hip is in extension, so it simulates the Nordic exactly. So as you can see, engage the glute, and quad flexibility. So I'll do a few Nordics here.
I'll pull this out. Easy. Beautiful. Whew.
There you go. Really focus on opening up the quads. That'll help you get a lot of power out of the bottom, so you can really get those hips involved, get that upper back up, and do a Nordic.
So we'll keep this Nordic video going here, and I'm gonna talk to you about why I love this exercise. And I originally fell in love with this exercise for health, because I'm trying to have the strongest knees in the world. But let's take a look at my knee. Well, if we're only talking about knee extension from step ups and split squats and things like that, I'd be pretty naive to think that everything's gonna go well. And so when I realized, oh shit, I'm super weak behind my knee, I fell in love with the Nordic, started getting these benches, started working on them. It took me months just to get to the ability to get up and do a Nordic. Now, what I particularly love about this exercise is the strengthening on the way down, and that's what led me to essentially create this ATG style of Nordic. This style of explosive hip extension first concentric didn't really exist prior to ATG, and the reason I'm gonna show you, I want to cheat and explode up. And this is an important form point with the ATG style Nordic. Get your abs off the bench. So a Nordic is a strict exercise. Abs have to go off the bench first, and then my shoulders have to stay higher than my hips. So if I were to explode up and then have to bend to get up with my shoulder going below my hip, that's not a strict Nordic. Or you can see if you go here and you just bend first, that's also cheating. So abs off the bench and then pull with the knee. Why did this become the ATG style Nordic? Because now I have to absorb all that force on the way down. So if you look on the way down now, there's nothing for my hips to go against. I can't use my hips on the way down. On the way down, it's all now knee flexion, and I can't use my hip extension. So using your hip extension to get up overloads your hamstrings on the way down. And why is that important? The hamstrings, compared to just about any other muscle in the human body, are wicked strong in the eccentric range. So if you go on a leg curl machine and you see how much weight you can get up, you can actually control a ton of that weight on the way down. That's why if you are going to use a leg curl machine, the only way I really like to use it is by using 2 legs up, dropping a leg, and trying to fight the very weight that you can lift up down on 1 leg. So what that means is the hamstrings, compared to other muscles, are very strong on the way down. So if you only train your hamstrings on a leg curl machine with 2 legs year after year, and you just keep trying to get stronger, and you think you have strong hamstrings because of that, you might find out on a Nordic that on the way down, it's very difficult. And that's why there's some guys who can even explode up, but really can't handle the weight on the way down. That's what we're trying to focus on and work, is the strength on the way down, for a couple reasons. The eccentric hamstring strength on the way down, for one thing, is protecting your hamstrings and your knees when it's in stressful situations. But for another, and one of my main mentors, Charles Poliquin, who trained Olympic gold medalist long jumpers and things like that, 1-foot jumping sports. Well, when I talked to him about this, I could dunk off 2 feet, but I could not even get close to dunking off 1 foot. My max touch was 10'1". That means I could get an inch over the rim. And now I do like 11'2" or something like that. So basically I can jump over a foot higher than when I initially had this conversation with him. He told me the secret of 1-foot jumping is eccentric knee flexion strength. Now why would that be? And you'll see a clip of this because I'll clip to a video of me dunking. But when you go to run and jump off 1 foot and your leg hits the ground, if that hamstring cannot handle that load and maintain its position there, then you end up with a sort of dead leg situation where you can only use your quad. And if you're only trying to use your quad to jump off 1 foot, you're just not going to get the fullest. If you watch single leg jumping, like no one in the history of basketball has dunked from the foul line off 2 feet. Single leg jumping is designed for horizontal jumping. Doesn't mean you can't jump high off 1 foot, but the way your body's designed, you don't just go straight up off 1 foot. It's designed for distance. So your eccentric hamstring strength is what allows you to keep running on top of the ground as you go to jump off 1 foot. So it wasn't until I found this out, realized I was weak on the way down of a Nordic, that I got the ability to dunk off 1 foot. So that is what became the ATG style Nordic. It's an explosive, abs off the bench, shoulders staying higher than hips up, and now having to use all that weight on the way down. And as you can see here, we have benches. So just like whoever was doing them in the gym today, someone was elevating. So when you're looking at advanced Nordics now, Derek talked about 10 reps flat bench. That's the level 2 requirement of superhuman. Level 3 requires you to start building 1 leg at a time. And if you look at this, I'll put myself on a spot and do a 1-legged Nordic. Quite a challenge, but I did get up. Okay, great. Someone can say, oh, you cheated your ass off. You used your lower back, your glutes. Exactly, that's exactly what I want, because watch now on the way down. You see all that force on the way down? I'm now loading my hamstrings so much harder eccentrically than I would ever get from a machine. So that is why that's the ATG style Nordic. That's why I love this exercise for insane knee health, is because of the way down, just how strong you can get on the way down. And then some last little tips here. For me as a basketball player, I realized that the Nordic exercise, if I'm already dribbling and now I'm approaching a defender and I make a move and I want to now explode past him, that's when my body relies on the Nordic more than any other muscle group. Because when it comes to deceleration or jumping, you add in a lot of quads, a lot of ankles. If it comes to just from a standstill, just exploding, you're adding in things like your lower back, Jefferson curl, seated good morning. But when you're going from the start of movement towards your top speed, that is when the Nordic really comes into play. So whatever speed you can explode, maybe the Nordic helps a little bit. Whatever top speed you can hold, maybe the Nordic helps a little bit. But the bridge from your start to your top end speed, that is more Nordic, I've found, than any other exercise when it comes to testing hundreds of athletes and seeing what builds them up to their top speed. That's your Nordic. So on the court, I love it because it allows me to explode past defenders, and it's allowed me to achieve my dream of being able to dunk off 1 leg. Those are direct results of the Nordic, and my knees are freakishly healthy, and you see me work my knee extension a ton but I also have achieved insanely strong knee flexion, and I'm having no problems and keep getting healthier. So it's a key part of the equation. If you want to have bulletproof knees, don't expect you can only train one side of it. So that gives you a lot of the in-depth background of why I want to do the Nordic in this style. So now, from me, we're actually going to go to my wife. We're going to take a live look at teaching someone a Nordic who has not been working on it. And I'm also going to talk to you about Superwoman program, which is what I believe any woman should be able to do as a baseline of health. And I think a woman should be able to do a flat bench Nordic. How many reps, adding weight, single leg, those things, that's depending on the sport and the goal. But I think a woman should be able to do a flat bench Nordic. So we're going to take a look, and I'm going to show you how for your kids, your wife, or if you have a workout partner and you're both about the same weight, but definitely if you weigh more than the person you're working with, you of course can use the Mr. Infinity strap, you of course can use a bench, but you could just hold their feet down if it's like your kid or your wife or something like that. So let's take a look here. I'm gonna start her.
Wait, I want to just try.
She wants to just try it, okay? So I'm gonna hold her heels down. So you see I'm putting my hands on her heels and I'm almost sitting my weight on it. You're gonna wanna keep your arms free, like a figure skating jump. She was a figure skater. Yeah, baby.
Here?
Yeah, yep, I got you. Keep going! Got it! Nordic. All right, now, she was a figure skater, and obviously her jumping, all that work paid off. Good job. Now, if you notice, I held her feet down there. So what she did was actually even 10% more impressive than using a bench. If we take a look at the bench, there's a foot plate there. If you go back and look at Jeff's video, get ready to see some of the sexiest calves of your life. Did you see his calves? All right, so that foot plate, this is how the machines are made. You get to add a little extra boost from those calves. I think it's you know, we haven't found that it really matters one way or another, but this is how the benches are made, so I didn't feel like unbolting them to take the calf out of it. Ultimately, whatever you can do, we keep progressing. But I did want to explain that about using the strap or having someone hold your heels down. It is about 10% harder, so it is very impressive to be able to do a flat bench Nordic without the assistance of your calves. So I wanted to my goal is to give a live look at the Nordic with a woman trying to learn how to do it. She is a superwoman, so she's got her chin up down, she's got her Nordic down, but of course, as you saw in Derek's section, there is absolutely nothing wrong elevating your hips and getting really good quality reps. So we've given you a lot of the data about the Nordic so far, all the little ins and outs, rights and wrongs, whys, and now Connor is our closer. So Connor is going to close things with some pretty cool dunk videos, so keep watching, and he's actually going to talk about how the Nordic relates to elite jumping and how he uses it, how we talked about how it's explosive up and slow down, how for him that relates to his jumping and his landing. So we're going to switch the camera around here.
So I'm just going to quickly touch on the Nordic and how it relates to anti-gravity and elite jumping for me specifically, but also Ben and Jeff and everyone as they progress to higher jumping levels. So the concentric is really important for jumping in the sense of maximum explosion, which we've already talked about. If you're becoming an elite level jumper, concentric Nordics should become very easy. And you should almost start having stricter form, not using your arms to help you get up, and only using your hamstrings and staying completely straight. This is going to put the maximum tension on your hamstring and the tendons attaching to your knee. The concentric part is going to help you when you actually go to jump. The eccentric will help you on your landings, which is almost more important than jumping at a high level because of the intense forces you put on your body when you land. So the ability to absorb that efficiently is going to be made easier by doing eccentric Nordics. So it should be going down as long as you can, and sometimes you'll find weak points where it gets much harder for you as the angle gets to a certain point, and you want to try to hold those points, staying completely straight and just slowly go down. And like Ben talked about, you can go to a one-leg Nordic to make the concentric and eccentric harder. For me personally, I found that just going down even slower helps me more. But for the concentric, I've started to do, instead of going to one leg, I've started to do 2 leg, but with weight. And this also makes you not be able to use your arms. So I'm just gonna show you with a 15 kilo.
You got it.
Do the hard part, just holding it.
And then you got pump the shit out of it.
Okay. So the 2-foot concentric, having both your legs underneath the pads, is going to be better for 2-foot jumping. The 1 foot would translate more to 1 foot jumping. I think that'd be pretty apparent. Also, holding a weight, especially when you start getting up to a bigger plate, gets hard just because of the body position. You have to hold it. So I think that getting a weight vest and slowly adding weight to that would be an easier way to progress these if you want to go the weighted route. Also, that would make it very simple for you to do it eccentrically also. Yeah, I think that's it.